Hello, my name is Jessica Ruda, and today we'll be talking about Asperger's syndrome. I know we talked about it in class, but I want to go into more detail, focus on certain things, but before we do that, I want to go over and have you guys understand what Asperger's is. So let's get to it. So as we know, it is a psychological disorder that is in the autistic spectrum. So that can range from super mild or very extreme and severe. That is termed an umbrella diagnosis, and that is to show that it is with not one type of autism. It is a range. A brain of somebody with Asperger's is very fascinating. They explain it as if their brain is wired differently. And that makes sense because in the prefrontal cortex, there are these things called mirror neurons. As they've studied a brain of an Asperger's person, they have noticed that they have fewer of those, so they don't have the cognitive ability to recognize or mirror situations or conversations. So, it's saying that that is their biggest struggle and complication is they lack communication skills and understanding social cues. So, they have major problems with eye contact. They avoid eye contact. They do not know how to maintain their distance. They either are really close to you or really far. They don't have any sense of perspective. They also have sensory overload issues. So if they're out of their routine, somewhere else with a lot of people talking, they will result to just shutting down and they won't be able to move on. They also have really intense interests. So when they are very interested in something, they know 100% of that topic. It does transition throughout their lifespan. That could be when they're young, they would love dinosaurs and know everything about dinosaurs, but that might transition to something more complex as they age. So when they are talking to other people and having conversations with other people, that might be annoying to some people because they can't relate or they don't understand what they're talking about. So with that, on the other side, when they are communicating, they might not understand what you are saying. They do not have that cognitive ability to receive information and then output it to you. They also hide with their symptoms. They're hidden within their symptoms. They will do their daily life every day. They will be able to feed themselves, clothe themselves. They will have good hygiene, but they will appear differently than most. But that is sometimes seen as normal because they can do those things unlike other syndromes or disorders. This brings me to my main focus of my presentation. It talks about the male and women difference between their diagnosis in Asperger's. So there's countless articles that talk about where are the girls within autism, and it is because that it is a 3-to-1 ratio compared to a male versus female to have Asperger's, but it's not necessarily mean that men are more likely to get Asperger's than females. It's just a mislink in the system. And in 1944, it was thought that only men had Asperger's or autism. But as time progressed, they noticed that females were having similar problems, but still there was 4 times more males to have Asperger's than females. So there was a constant stereotype going around that boys were being diagnosed as boys, young men, and females were being diagnosed as women in their 30s and 40s and 50s. So you might think, why is this happening? How is this happening? And it's because girls mask their symptoms much better than men, and especially within this syndrome. So if we compare a female watching TV and a male watching TV with Asperger's, and they start receiving the information from the cartoon or the show that they're watching, and they notice that that is how I'm supposed to act. And so they take those things and use it in society, in reality, and the females will pick up a lot quicker that acting like a cartoon character or talking like a cartoon character is not acceptable in a casual or normal conversation. Another reason why this happens and there's a disconnect is because symptoms are targeted towards men. And it's because the physical expression features that are seen amongst autistic patients is more directed towards men, but females present their symptoms much differently. So they realized that since they have a different symptom expression, that they came up with the term female autism phenotype. It is the solution. It is what they've realized, that what men have is different than what female have. And men that are already diagnosed still is in the process for women being diagnosed. So this is still in the process, but it is helping women being put in the right place, put on the proper autistic spectrum. So the thing that controversies with that, and the reason why they came up with this, is because they in the past had the ADOS, which is the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, which is a test that a lot of females took, and that was not necessarily working for them. It was, they would get a big fat 0 on it that they weren't autistic when they were, but it was just so centered towards men symptoms that it completely was, they failed it. So that is why they implemented the female autism phenotype, so that they realized that she might most definitely have autism, and we have to make sure that she is put on the right spectrum. So there are a lot of misconceptions within people or patients with Asperger's, and a lot of articles wanted it to be expressed that people with Asperger's have no empathy or sympathy. They don't have a sensitive side, but that is completely incorrect. They, in some cases, they are so much more concerned than the stereotype tries to say. So this is because the media has greatly influenced the reality of people with Asperger's, and so it is expressed in the media that they are robots, but that is not true. And so we got to make sure that these misconceptions are no longer expressed and people are educated greatly on this topic, so that when you do approach someone with Asperger's, that there is no disconnect and no misunderstanding. That is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.